Welcome to the Lawyers Weekly Show for an in-depth look at the issues facing the legal profession.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Lawyers Weekly Show. My name's Jerome Doraisamy and I'm coming to you today from Camaragal Land in Sydney. Today I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio by two high-flying lawyers. First of all, we have Jane Bowes, who is the managing partner of Bowes Legal. She's come all the way down from Rockhampton to be with us today. Hello, Jane.
Hi, Jerome. Thank you for having me here again.
No, it's great to have you back. And we also have Danielle Keyes, who is the Group General Counsel of Nova Entertainment. Hello, Danielle.
Hi, Jerome. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. Now, today we are going to be discussing how women in law can take different pathways to success in the legal profession. Jane and Danielle have had differing careers, and it'll be great to learn more about their respective journeys, not just professionally, but also personally, some of the challenges along the way, the ups and downs, and what they've learned for the next generation coming through the ranks. Guys, before we get into all things vocational pathways, for the benefit of our listeners who may not know, the two of you and the work that you do, would you mind giving me a brief overview of what the day-to-day looks like for you both? Jane, I'll start with you.
Sure. So we are a specialised personal injuries firm based up in central Queensland. We're based in Rockhampton, and we specialise just in that niche area of law. And I opened my own firm 3 years ago. It was our third birthday last week. So that's our area of specialty. Yep.
Yeah. And Danielle?
Yeah, so I'm the Group General Counsel of Nova Entertainment, as you said. So Nova is an entertainment company, and they operate a range of commercial radio stations across the country. So I'm responsible effectively for all of their sort of broadcasting and audio entertainment activities.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as I said, coming to this conversation from very different angles, and so it'll be great to get your respective perspectives. So as a starting point, I thought it might be worth asking you both why you think this is such an important conversation for us to be having. When you both look back on, some of those early years and, the attitudes you might have held and the environments you might have been in, why is this, an important conversation to have today, Danielle?
It's funny, Jerome. Jane and I were talking about this, in prep for today, and we've both come from similar sort of foundations, if you like, in terms of how we started in law. We both started in the traditional route that we at the time believed was kind of, single-mindedly the only route. We started in big law. We worked really hard. And then I certainly got to a point where I just felt like there was both a kind of a misalignment with the traditional expectations of a private practice lawyer, and that kind of model in a law firm wasn't working for me. And also this desire to sort of be part of the decision rather than be a decision, to be working with a business to influence, to guide, to help make decisions. And so the step in-house for me was inevitable in that sense. And so I think it's important to have the conversations about trajectories because there are so many options for lawyers these days, but there is also, I think, a little bit of an archaic mindset around what the expectation should be. And if you're not in private practice or you're not in a big law firm or if you're not doing it a certain way, then you're not succeeding.
That's such a good point because that was our attitude when we first met. So when we first met, I was a baby lawyer. Danielle was building this team at the time. It was the number one global firm in the world. We were ride or die. Partnership is it. There is nothing else. Tunnel vision. We worked so hard. 5 a.m. starts, midnight finishes. It was insane. And we both, took
different paths.
Took different paths.
It was
different. It just, as we got older and our lives changed, I had children before you did, and for me as well, I started to realise that my personal values weren't aligned with big corporates, and I wanted to practice law on my own terms, work for the clients that I want, and as you said before, have a seat on the bus but drive the bus. So not just be in partnership where, I get a little bit of a say. I wanted to be the driver.
Yeah. What was the realization like for you both in, having that epiphany that you wanted to do things differently and you don't want to follow this cookie cutter, like black and white trajectory that is handed down to you as a baby lawyer? Was it, an exciting kind of prospect, overwhelming, nerve-wracking, all of the above?
It was probably all of the above, wasn't it? You know,
Yeah.
certainly. I mean, it's a massive leap to go from private practice, big law specialist to in-house general role, right?
And there's so much misconception around that. I remember when you did that, I thought, why is she doing that? And then I heard her speak about how difficult her role was. And I think there's this really big misconception around in-house lawyers and that it's somehow like a sidestep or you couldn't cut it in big law. And it's totally the opposite. You are literally
At the coalface.
at the coalface of that business, protecting the brand, doing absolutely everything. The CEO's turning to you for every sort of decision.
Yep.
It's such an important role. And same with me. So a lot of people look and think, oh, small firm, what would they know, but it's so much harder to do that, in my opinion, than it is to work your way up in the comfort and safety of a firm where the clients are already there for you. You know you're going to get paid. You have teams. You have IT support.
That was my first reaction when you told me that you were opening your own firm. I was like, are you mad? What is wrong with you?
We actually have a joke that between the two of us, Danielle's the crisis one that comes in when I'm in crisis.
The cleaner.
Yeah. And
I remember when Jane did actually first tell me, she's like, oh, actually how it came about was she said, what's your email address? What's your most recent email address? And I gave it to her and I said, why? And she said, oh, because I want you to help me pick a logo for the new law firm.
Yeah.
It's like, whose new law firm? She said, oh, mine.
And then it was, a few months later, I'm ringing her in tears. This is so hard. Why didn't you tell me it was going to be this hard? And your response was, well, I think you did it before consulting
me.
So when you both decided to make this pivot away from the big end of town, you Danielle, you went in-house. Jane, you opened up your own practice. Did you have to kind of redefine what success as a legal practitioner meant? For both of you, did you have to come at it from your own vantage point, taking into account your own personal idiosyncrasies rather than trying to just go along with whatever everyone else was trying to do?
Absolutely, because success, if I had stayed, I would probably be it would look like success on the outside, but on the inside, I don't think I would be anywhere as fulfilled or as happy as I am now running my own firm and my own business.
Yeah, I think equally the leap and the shift in whatever that looks like is, I think, hard, irrespective of whether it's in-house, own firm, big firm, small firm, whatever it might be. But it definitely, so it was definitely a challenge. But I did have to completely recalibrate. I did have to be a different lawyer to the only one I knew. And I recall a moment, it's a funny anecdote, when I was leaving my prior role with Guzman y Gomez before I took on the role with Nova. I was sort of cleaning out my inbox, which was completely out of control at that point. And I stumbled across the very first advice that I'd given the business at the time. And it was articulate and it was long and it was polished and it had all these things. And I looked at it and I just went, huh?
Yeah.
It was so long and it just had too much information in it. Looking at it now from a business mind.
Yeah.
And now I compare that to the advices I give now, which are bullet points.
Yeah.
Brevity must prevail, right? And so that whole piece about redefining is critical because I had to change the sort of lawyer I became to influence and penetrate and execute my role.
And become so much more commercial.
That's right.
Protecting the brand, doing everything you can for a brand and the business, which is also what I do in a small practice.
Yeah. Tell me a bit more about coming at this as women in the profession, because and certainly, speaking as a man who, in a former life was a practitioner as well, there are certain nuances, socially, culturally, professionally, that men in the profession do not have to face relative to their female counterparts. So, when you both were making these pivots professionally, when you were, I guess, redefining what success meant to you, how much more difficult do you think that might have been by virtue of the fact that, as women in the profession, there have been these long-standing and ingrained structural barriers to success?
I think my pivot in-house, I don't think I was really faced with that sort of gender issue, if you like, but certainly I did absolutely face that in my role at DLA Piper, where I was effectively building a practice from nothing. So I was the Queensland location head for the insolvency team. It didn't exist. I took on that role and I was really up against male partners from large law firms. And I was young. I was a young female and I was competing against and trying to kind of infiltrate these long established relationships. And I'll never forget a career-defining moment for me, absolutely, was when I won my first matter. And I actually was pitching against a partner from Herbert Smith Freehills and my old boss of Norton Rose Fulbright for the same file. And I won it. And it was only a small matter, but it didn't matter. It was that moment that pivoted for me, I think. And I went, what, actually, this is hard, but the hard work is working. So certainly, but I continue to face those difficulties. I think you inevitably do. I've, in being in-house, maybe faced some similar difficulties at times. I think there is potentially boys' clubs that exist, but I think certainly if you are really focused on being true to who you are and what you do, then there's always ways to navigate that.
Yeah, the boys' club definitely exists in my line of work. It has been so difficult as a woman starting a firm. I don't know whether it's just because it was regional Queensland, because the boys' clubs exist down in Brisbane where, they all discuss matters and all seem to be across different things. So as a woman, you're trying to prove yourself, be taken seriously, really trying to have a voice, where my experience has been it's only really recently that they have now seen that I have proved myself. And it's not that I don't think I'll ever be accepted into the boys' club, nor do I want to be. I'd like to set a new standard so that the women that want to go out on their own, or even if they don't want to go out on their own, we can have some sort of a collaboration groups, where we can count on each other the same way the boys' clubs do it as well.
But I think even, a really good way to cut a path there is the example of your recent win of Litigation Partner of the Year. Jane, it's an incredible win. Jane was up against partners from big law firms, male partners from big law firms, and you won. A small regional law firm won. I mean, that in itself says, so much about what you've done and your ability to do it, and helps kind of this kind of trailblazing mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Danielle is referring to our recent Partner of the Year awards, at which Danielle was, at which Jane was one of our big winners. And it's just a reminder that these awards programs are not just for the big end of town. Lawyers of any stripes can win these awards, and Jane was no doubt a very deserving winner in that category. Jane, further to what we were just discussing, I'm curious to know if there's been a motherhood penalty of any description. And whether that has, shaped your view of, divergent pathways towards success.
Such a good question. We were talking about this as well. Yes, it is seen as a barrier, but it is not. And it definitely is not anymore. Danielle and I have had when we became mothers, it was at different points of our career. So she's obviously quite senior in her, top of the field, and she's got a baby. I was a junior, and I still look back and I don't know how I survived. It was so difficult because there was no flexible working. There was no work from home on a Tuesday. There was no leaving at 4. I remember I would have to get into the firm. I would drop the kids off at 6:30, and they were babies, and I would get in at 6:45, and the agreement was that I could leave at 4:30, but then I would always log in and do work later. And some partner said to me on the way out, "Oh, see you later, off to do the counsel shift," insinuating that I was lazy because I was leaving the office at 4:30. Meanwhile, he'd been at lunch all afternoon. So those were the times that I was trying to forge that, which is why I'm so committed to, like, my entire team, they're all going to probably be mums one day. So I don't want it to be as hard for them as it was for me. But I also do need to point out that you still have to do the work, you still have to do the time. It's okay to take the time off, but there's no shortcuts. And it's not a hindrance. And a very, very great mentor of mine told me it's a marathon, not a sprint. I wish I had listened to that advice
at the time.
But it's just not my I'm just always trying to get to where I need to be as fast as possible.
I think, and it's all good points. And I think there is a bit of a penalty in the sense of, pre-baby, I just worked, and you could work. And in fact, I made the decision, I wouldn't leave work till 7 or 7:30 at night to beat the traffic. So I'd rather be at work than stuck in traffic for an hour and a half to get home. So, and I had the flexibility to do that. And I have a baby now, and I certainly don't have that flexibility anymore. But to Jane's point, I think that it doesn't mean that you don't find the way to work hard in other areas. And we sort of laugh about that statement, youth is wasted on the young. It definitely is.
Yep.
When you have a baby, you're clinically sleep deprived.
Everyone in this room.
Exactly. Our eyes are all red right now. But clients expect you to bring your A game, and at best you're on your G game. On a good day. And I certainly am at a kind of a point in my career, maybe because I'm sort of almost 20 years PQE now. I've ridden that wave, and I'm at the kind of other side of it where I have so much more flexibility because of my seniority.
And you've earned that.
I've earned that, correct. And now, Nova is incredibly supportive, and I am so grateful for that every day. I don't know how I would be able to do it if they weren't as supportive. But you're right, I've earned my time, my stripes, and the trust of the business to be able to be as flexible as I need to be a mother and a lawyer.
Just further on that point about not always being able to bring one's A game, that's definitely something that I can relate to. I feel that more days than I would like. How does that feed into your idea of success, professionally and also personally as well? Do we need to be recalibrating our expectations of what we can reasonably achieve? How is that kind of thought process?
I love that question because I think there is no such thing as balance, especially when you're a parent working in a profession like law. It is a fallacy.
I like that.
To think you are going to have balance, you are not. So, and I remember being, really upset at one point, thinking I was failing as a mother, failing in the firm because at that time I was only working 4 days, and then the kids are at daycare, but you just need to understand that to get to where you want to be, so whatever success looks like to you, your life is going to be thrown out of balance for a period of time. You can't do it all at the same time. So you can't climb the career ladder full time and be like picking the kids up, dropping the kids off. It's impossible. So you find ways and workarounds to do it. But the whole thing of there is a very big misconception, I think, at the moment that it's possible that you can have this balance. It doesn't exist, in my opinion, especially when you are in a career as demanding as law. The clients don't wait. The courts don't wait. You might be up drafting pleadings that night that, they have to get done by tomorrow. So,
Yeah, I think it's a good point, and I think it is a controversial thing to raise, but that's exactly 100% you.
Please don't cancel me.
That's it. Cancelled. You cancelled for both of us. But
You'll have to go back into crisis management.
I will have to go. There's a career for me in crisis management, managing you. I'll be your manager. No, but I think there's real tenets there in that. I think the way to find some kind of balance in the unbalanced chaos is to turn up, to be present, and, we spoke about it just before about, you get so caught up in all the things that need to happen, the routines, the witching hours, the pickups, the drop-offs, the this, the that you're actually not present for your kids.
Yeah.
And last night I was very aware of that, and I actually stepped into the playpen and sat with my daughter and played with her.
Yeah.
And actually she was so receptive to that, and it made me realise how much more present we need to be.
Yes.
And so I think you can find that in the time that's really afforded to you.
Yeah. So I'm so interested in what you're both saying here because it's something that I really feel for myself personally. We've got a 17-month-old at home, and I was just telling you both off air that I feel like I don't get enough time with him as much as I'd like, during the working week. And I often feel as though I'm in firefighting mode,
Yes.
or I'm
Yes.
reacting to the working day rather than being proactive about forward planning and the things I need to be getting done. And I'm not really sure how to break that cycle. And so to the points you're both making, how have you both, recalibrated what it means to not just be successful long term, but even just get through the bloody day?
The day to
Well,
day.
it gets easier as they get older, and you get the right supports around you. So if you need help with drop off and pick up, hire, and you can afford to do that, hire someone to do that. I did have to catch myself though recently because it was so hard for me. We didn't have a lot of support, and at the time I was a junior lawyer, so we barely had any money. And then you pay daycare, so you're literally working to pay daycare and getting 2 hours of sleep a night. But I did have to check myself recently because there was definitely a period of time where I was almost too harsh on my staff because I had been through such difficult times. So I needed to stop and think that's not the
Doesn't mean they need to do it.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. I think that's right. It's easy though to get kind of caught, well, I've been there, I've done that.
Yep.
It's doable.
It's not that hard.
But
I
you're
survived.
right. Yeah.
But that goes to, and circling back to what we were talking about earlier in the conversation about some of the cultural expectations or attitudes that you both had to cop, when you were starting out as baby lawyers. You don't want to be falling into that same trap of, and forgive me if it seems like I'm putting this on you, but the idea of, well, I did it, so can you, or sort of that kind of suck it up, princess kind of attitude, and it might be a conscious or subconscious thing. But I mean, how do you kind of break away from expecting that those coming through the ranks are going to do it the same way that you did?
It's a great question, and we are all products of our own environments, and I think it's really about having and wanting to have an EQ, wanting to read the room, wanting to go, just because this was the path I took and this is my experience, it doesn't mean it has to be someone else's. And certainly I think it all comes down to work ethic.
Yes. Yeah.
It comes down to, having lawyers around you, your teams, your staff, who genuinely are doing their absolute best, and if it means they go to the gym at lunch, that's great. That's their life. That was never the life that we had. It just wasn't an option at the time. But that's not a bad thing either,
And we set the example. So if we don't show empathy to them, if we don't lead by example and show them that is okay to go to the gym, then we're failing at setting trying to change the expectations.
That we know is wrong. We know that mindset, that kind of expectation was wrong, but we did it because we lived in it.
Yeah.
And that was what you had to do to survive, to succeed.
Especially,
No, go on.
I was just going to say, especially in firms, back in the day when I had kids, it was, I don't even think half the firm knew that's what it was like. They just, whereas now everyone, the workplace has changed so much, but that's how it was back then. And
I'm glad you brought up empathy, Jane, because I think it's a really important point to flesh out when it comes to being a good leader and certainly allowing your team to flourish in ways that make sense to them. And one of the sort of examples I keep coming back to is the disconnect that we are currently seeing between younger professionals and more senior ones when it comes to working from the office.
and the work from home.
Yeah, like there's so many grad/junior lawyers who started their careers in the pandemic and were working full-time from home, and now they've been asked to come back into the office, and they're not unreasonably asking, well, why do I have to do that? Because I was getting the job done from home, so what's the problem? And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the more senior lawyers who they obviously grew up, working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, well, longer than 9 to 5, but they grew up working in the office, and they were able to benefit from water cooler conversation and listening to their superiors, talking on the phone to clients, and there is obviously so much benefit to being able to do that in person. And so neither camp is necessarily wrong, but you've got to bridge that divide. And for you both, in leadership roles, I imagine it's a bit of a struggle sometimes between allowing your individual employees to flourish in ways that make sense to them, carve out their own pathway to success, whilst at the same time trying to balance business interests. Where do you start with that?
Yeah, it's a good one. To be honest with you, I'd love to be home 5 days a week and never see anyone.
I'm so opposite. I'm an in-office worker. I love it. I'm old school.
Yeah, I know. But no, look, I joke about that. It is important to be in there. I think certainly being in-house, legal is a national role, right? So we're not sort of market or state-based like a lot of other sort of areas in the business are. So a lot of what we do is on Teams or video or whatever it might be. But being in the office is important because connectivity, of course, for the team. Learning from those around you, listening to conversations, being part of them, being able to have the drop-ins. There's so much more benefit in being able to drop in and talk to someone. You get so much more achieved than if you have to go on Teams. They're on red, they're not available, whatever it might be, So I think managing that is important. And there's actually was an interesting Fair Work case, a dismissal case that came out recently where the court upheld actually the employer's decision to terminate on the basis that the particular employee didn't want to come back into the office on grounds that included the fact that the employer needed to make sure that they could also check in on their staff's mental health. Yeah. That they could make sure that their employee was getting trained properly, that they were listening to conversations, that they were delivering on required timeframes, all of these things. And it all makes sense, and it's things that we probably take for granted.
Yeah.
I
love in-office work, and because my situation's different, because I'm trying to build a culture from the ground up. And so I love us all being in there together. But even if I wasn't in my own firm, I still think that there is so much importance in being in the office. Yes, there is flexibility in, a work from home day here and there, but I learned so much from sitting outside the partner's office and, we were litigating and he would say, I want you to ring up and I want you to make this offer. And I would do it and then he would listen and critique me. And if you're not in the office, you're missing those really important learning opportunities. You're hearing the senior colleagues on the phone. And in the litigation team I was in, we had both sides. We had both plaintiff and defendant. So I'd go down to the printers and I'd be like, what do you reckon about this? And then the defendant lawyers would be criticising. And, we'd all be talking about what we think is going to happen with that particular case. Like, it's such good learning, but times have changed, obviously. So I can't be old school and say everyone's got to be in the office. We've got to find a happy medium, but I would just love for the younger ones to understand there's just so much benefit in being there in person. And I feel like the more senior you get, it's almost like you don't really need to be in the office as much because you've sort of done your time, but you also have to mentor and coach the others.
For your team, yeah. I mean, the in-house lawyers listening to this will understand when I say if you can, a day in the life of an in-house lawyer is if you can make it to the toilet and back again without getting accosted in the hallway by someone, it's a good day.
Right.
Usually with, did you see that? Have you read that email I sent you? When did you send it? Oh, just now.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I haven't read it. But certainly I agree with you. And, you know, from my perspective, it is also it is important to be seen in the business. You know, legal has a huge presence in any business, but particularly, you know, in media and entertainment, legal has a very big presence in that space. It's a high risk, you know, industry.
Yeah.
And being present, being seen, being available, that's important.
And I do feel like too, when everyone's on Teams and whatever, everyone's losing important communication skill sets, which is to go up and knock on the door and speak to someone face to face. Those are skills that you will take with you for life. Yeah. You know, picking up the phone, it's not the same as sending a chat message on Teams. So
you're right.
So it's kind of reflecting on, you know, what we've been discussing and bringing it back to this idea of carving out your own pathway to success, you know, whether you're a woman in the profession or not, and given all the changes that we are seeing and will continue to see, no doubt, moving forward, what are the key takeaways and lessons for you both about, you know, the need to, you know, forge your own path and also allow people to do that?
How much time have you got for lessons? We might be here a while.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think absolutely do you. You know, I think Jane and I have followed very different paths. We sort of came together, we sort of met at DLA Piper. That's where we really kind of forged both, you know, a lot of our skills fundamentally, but also our friendship. And we took different paths from there. We actually left the firm at similar times, and we you know, we lost touch over the years for a period of time as we chased down our own paths, and we came back together. And I think leaving the law firm, I think certainly for me, demonstrated that to trust my instincts.
Yeah.
To back myself, to go, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. But doesn't mean I don't want hard work. I just don't want what this looks like. You know, so I think in terms of forging your own path, I think as long as you've got integrity, you're being true to yourself, you're not afraid of hard work, that you're prepared to, you know, stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yes, I love that saying. You always say that to me.
Yeah, you know, lean on the people around you and be guided by them, you know, follow in their paths. Or often what I used to do is go, I actually don't like what this person did, or I don't like that particular trait in that senior member or whatever, and choose not to be like that as well.
Yeah. It's very easy to follow the pack because that's safe.
Yes.
And, you know, that's okay if that's what you want to do. But for me, safe is not the option. I want to get the most out of my life and career, and that wasn't playing it safe. That was taking a massive risk and leaving, you know, a really well-paid job, comfort, security, path to partnership, all the things. Yes, there's so many lessons every single day of the week in doing that. But if you don't live your life genuinely and how you want, what is your life? And as lawyers, we're so... I learned this recently when I did a leadership course. We are the most judgmental people.
We are.
But we are so judgmental probably on ourselves more than anyone else. So, you know, we're already worrying about, you know, people going to say you went out on your own or you failed or da-da-da-da-da, but you're already thinking that yourself. But just go for it, and who knows what will happen.
Yeah, well, speaking of being judgmental, I'd like to ask you both to score yourselves in terms of how well each of you have done when it comes to of carving your own pathway, redefining success for yourselves and getting yourselves to points where, personally, professionally, you feel, I guess, validated or satisfied with, how your careers have ended up.
My shift in-house was met with so much prejudice by so many people in so many different ways. And when I was first starting out and, in making that decision and really finding my feet and understanding what kind of lawyer do I need to be now, I sort of allowed myself to fall victim, I think, to that mindset as well, going, well, maybe I couldn't make it. Maybe this was the easy route. But that's just because all of those views of other people, they're loud and obnoxious and they take up space in your mind, particularly when you're learning something new. But the truth is, now that I reflect, I've been in-house for almost a decade. I am a much better lawyer, and my life and my experience is so much richer from being in-house. I have won awards, I've sat on panels, I've given podcasts, I have guided businesses through some of the most complex and commercially sensitive matters that a private practice lawyer, I don't think they would have been able to do it. Because a private practice lawyer will never know the business like an in-house lawyer does. And I always say that to my teams, just because you may be experiencing this prejudice or you feel it in your mind that somehow we're inferior because we're not in private practice, it's not right, it's incorrect, and I always say to them, just because they're in private practice, it doesn't mean they're better than what you are. I actually think I'm a private practice lawyer's worst nightmare. I will check.
They would see your email and think, oh, God.
Yeah, and there's not much I haven't seen in my time in-house. And so I use external resources because of specialty, but it doesn't mean that I allow that to be, taking them blindly on what they're saying, because at the end of the day, I have to understand it to give it back to the business in words that make sense, right?
What are you giving yourself on the judgmental score?
Did you both notice I avoided that judgmental score? You know me too well. People ask me often, would you go back to private practice? And at this point in my life, I say no.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself demonstrates that I'm pretty content with where I'm at and what success looks like for me in-house now. So I would probably put myself, I'm a tough marker. I don't think anyone ever deserves a 10. It doesn't matter how good you are. No one deserves a 10. So take 10 off the table. I'd put myself at probably about a 7. 7 to 8.
Room for growth. Yeah.
Room for growth always.
Room for growth,
and who knows what's around the corner.
Correct. Yeah.
You just never know what's out there. But from a content perspective, did I make the right decision? Do I feel comfortable in my role? Am I influencing? Are all the reasons why I chose to shift in-house playing out? Are they eventuating? Yes, they are.
Yeah.
I am the trusted business advisor that I wanted to be.
Yeah. What about you, Jane?
You know what's so silly is I still don't feel that successful, even though I know I've achieved really amazing things. But I have to take moments where I stop. So after the Lawyers Weekly Awards, I was on the plane and I had a little tear to myself, and I thought, I don't know whether that's just my personality mixed in with the legal profession, where I am my own harshest critic. So if I had to mark myself, I'm a tough marker too. And the thing is that I'm always striving for the next thing. So, and again, I don't know whether that's my personality. I've always, if you had asked me 3 years ago that I would be here, sitting here today, have this amazing firm, this great clients, great referrers, awesome team, I just could not have ever imagined that. So yes, that is success, but there's definitely much more room for more success or growth. But also success is, like the other day, I was able to leave the office and see my son play viola. those personal successes as well.
So give us the scorecard.
Oh, I was going to give myself a 5, maybe 6.5.
I think that's big. Well, you have to remember why you did this.
Yeah.
You did this because you wanted to drive the bus.
Yeah.
You did this because you wanted the control and the influence to practice law your way.
Yeah.
And you are practicing law for real people with real results.
That's so true. Like
you're impacting their lives.
Yeah, like at the end of cases, they come in and, some of the things they write in cards, you've changed my life, and
it's very easy for us as lawyers to kind of get caught up in the robotic nature of the day to day. Like this, do that, go on, and I think we forget that there are real people at the other side of this.
Yeah.
And I recall a moment as an insolvency lawyer, exactly to this point as an insolvency litigator, getting up, ready to go to court. I was in the bankruptcy court that day, and I, set the alarm, you get up, you get ready, you do all the things, you've got your submissions, you've got your paperwork, you've done this, you've done that, and you turn up. And it's so robotic and it's so transactional. And the bankrupts, the ultimate bankrupts, were there, and they woke up that morning and their life looked very different. And at the end of the day, they were bankrupt. Yep. And it made me pause and reflect when they were crying, and it kind of snapped me out of that sort of I'm just doing my job mindset into being a human.
Yeah. That's one thing I love about my job is it's real people, humans.
With real impact.
With an actual impact, and where we practice, because a lot of the work is mining or heavy industrial, someone shouldn't go to work and come home with their arm torn off. So being able to represent them and fight against the biggest companies who, up until recently, I don't think they took us seriously. I think they thought, who's this small regional town? But we've definitely shown them that we are fierce litigators. We won't back down. But the end result, is definitely a successful. I love it. It makes me so happy.
So just before I let you both go, if you could offer one piece of advice to those coming through the ranks about, defining success for themselves and doing it their way, what would it be? There's
no shortcut to the top. I think in today's post-COVID social media, this person got $1 million overnight, this person's famous. It's just in my experience in law, and all of my friends that, maybe not be lawyers, but I have some very successful friends. Not one of them has got there through overnight success. It has been hard work, day in, day out on the tools. There is no shortcut. Yes, at times your life will be completely thrown out of balance, but it won't be forever. You just have to keep remembering marathon, not a sprint. And if something's not working out for you in whatever firm it is, or you opened your own firm and it's not going, there is always another option. We're in a time at the moment where there is so many opportunities available, especially to the young lawyers. Like back in the day, someone said to my father that I would never get a job in a law firm because we didn't have any law connections in our family. So I shouldn't
you've told me that before.
Yeah, I shouldn't have even bothered. And he, as Dad always does, comes into bat for me. He said, "You don't know my daughter." But it was really difficult back then, where you were handwriting resumes trying to get into these top tier firms. So advice-wise, just keep putting in the time, keep putting in the hours, and don't be afraid to pivot. And it's okay to change because you're always going to end up where you need to be. You might not feel like it at the time, and you might need to ring a good friend like Danielle for some crisis counselling or how to prep for
My
a
number
trial.
will be available post-podcast.
We'll leave it in the show notes.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. What about you, Danielle?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there is no cheating success, to your point. You can't do that. But I think whilst I echo those sentiments, I also think that you need to have the courage to back yourself. I think both of us, the themes that I hope's come through from today's podcast is we both had courage to do something different. And despite all of the things and the stumbling blocks along the way, we stuck with it. So I think the advice there is, back yourself and have courage in believing that if it's the right path for you, then do it. If going and working overseas is the right path to it, I regret that I never did that. I've had a long and illustrious career as an Australian lawyer, and my life would be very different if I had have gone overseas, but I wish I had have had the courage to do that. Yeah. I think just there's so many opportunities open to lawyers these days. Just be brave, be bold. Is it Richard Branson who says, say yes and ask how to do it later?
Oh, yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, just be bold, be courageous. You have to work hard in whatever the path is, but don't be afraid to take a step.
Yeah. And say yes to when those doors and opportunities come your way. Say yes, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's right.
Jane Bowes, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jerome.
And Danielle Keyes, thank you.
Thank you, Jerome.
Thank you to the listener for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give us a rating and review on whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts, as it'll help other lawyers discover and enjoy this show. And if you've got ideas for other episodes we can run, please get in touch at editor@lawyersweekly.com.au. You can also reach us on social media. See you again next time.